The bells of Santiago Cathedral rang like thunder. Not the cheerful kind, not the kind you hear at weddings or Christmas. Massachusetts. No, these were slow, deliberate, each toll heavy enough to make the stone walls tremble. And inside, the air felt like it belonged to another century. Candlelight painted the pillars in gold and shadow. Rows of crimson-robed cardinals stood still as statues, every eye fixed on the great marble steps at the altar. She was standing there, Catherine. Her gown wasn't just a dress, it was a storm, layers of deep ivory silk that caught the flicker of the flames. Her hands still trembling, as though even she didn't quite believe where she was. From the far side of the hall, a figure began to walk. White robes, a simple golden mitre. The staff in his right hand glinted in the candlelight. The Pope. His steps echoed, slow and certain, each one sending a ripple of murmurs through the crowd. He stopped before her. The world seemed to shrink to just the two of them, and then he spoke. "Kneel." The word was soft, but it cut through the hall like a blade. She lowered herself. Silk pooled around her knees, her head bowed. I could hear my own heart pounding, and I wasn't even there, but I can imagine the weight of it. Centuries of tradition pressing down like an invisible crown. He lifted the vial, not of oil, but of something deeper in color, almost crimson, catching the light like liquid fire, with his thumb. He drew the sign of the cross on her forehead. "Chosen by God," he said, each syllable measured. "For the people. For the crown. For the world." Gasps. A few sobs. Somewhere, a camera shutter clicked, the sound suddenly obscene in such a sacred moment, that no one knew this was going to happen, not the court, not the prime ministers, not even the king himself. The Pope stepped back. He turned, raising both hands toward the vaulted ceiling. "On this night, heaven has declared its queen." Later, in whispers, people would argue about it. Some would swear it was political theater, others would insist it was prophecy fulfilled. But in that moment Catherine rose to her feet, and when her eyes met the crowd, she was no longer the young woman from the shadows of the royal court. She was something else entirely. The night had begun hours earlier, like any royal gala, laughter spilling from the marble balconies, crystal glasses clinking, strings playing in the background while foreign dignitaries danced polite circles. But behind the velvet curtains, a storm was brewing. The king had been ill for months. Whispers said he was unfit to rule, others said he was being poisoned by his own council. Catherine had been there quietly, at his bedside, reading letters for him when his voice failed, signing documents he could no longer hold steady enough to sign. She was never meant to be more than a royal consort in the eyes of the public. But tonight, someone had decided that would change. The conflict began when Archbishop Velasco stormed into the cathedral's inner chambers, just hours before the gala. "This is madness," he said, slamming the door. "No woman has ever been crowned in Santiago without the council's decree." The Pope didn't even look up from the parchment he was signing. "The council's will is not God's will." Velasco's voice rose. "You will fracture the kingdom. They will call it blasphemy." "Let them," the Pope replied calmly. "A kingdom built on fear is already broken." And with that, the die was cast. By the time the gala reached its midpoint, the guests were summoned into the cathedral. The excuse was vague, a special blessing. People shuffled in, still holding their wine glasses, still mid-conversation, until they saw Catherine standing at the altar, and the Pope approaching her with the oil. It hit them like cold water. Some froze, some smiled knowingly, others slipped out the side doors to make frantic phone calls. The climax came not with the Pope's words, but with the reaction after. The king himself appeared at the balcony above, pale, fragile, but smiling. "You will follow her," he said, his voice cracking but strong enough to carry. "For she has been chosen, as I once was." The cathedral erupted, some with cheers, some with outrage. The flash of cameras was relentless now, and Catherine stood in the center of it all. Still, unshaken. It was as if she had stepped out of time. In the days that followed, the world split in two. Headlines screamed. Pope defies tradition, crowns new queen. Royal council in crisis. Is this the end of the old order? Supporters filled the cathedral steps with flowers and candles. Opponents marched in the streets, and Catherine, she walked through it. All the new crown heavy on her head, her eyes fixed on something beyond the noise. She had been chosen, and whether by God or by politics, the world would never be the same again.